Hey everybody, good morning. It's Terry here on Tim Travels, coming to you from the Salt Lake City Prime Terminal. We just got in here. It's pretty early in the morning. It's like, let me see, it's about 6:30. But before I get to anything else, I shot a video coming down off of Parley Summit, so that's I-80 westbound, coming down into Salt Lake City. I did a time lapse. So take a look and tell me what you think. Anyway, yeah, so that's uh, nice weather, so not a bad descent, very little traffic this morning. So I picked up my drive shifts over in north of Fort Collins, and I drove us over here. We're about, I'm gonna say realistically, like 16 hours from our 90, but we don't have to be there till midnight tomorrow night, midnight on Monday. But here's the cool thing, and I want to explain this how hours of service work when you're crossing time zones and stuff. So we left the central time zone and we're going to the Pacific time zone. So that means we're going to pick up 2 hours. But last night, the clocks fell back because of we went back to standard time. So that means we're picking up 3 hours. So what that means is, according to the hours of service rules, every drive shift on this trip, we can actually drive 14 hours. And our 14-hour clock is extended to 17 hours. And this week, because we're doing that and crossing through the time-space continuum with daylight savings time and everything, we'll be able to run 73 hours this week. So I haven't checked with logs on that, but I'm pretty confident about what I'm saying. So yeah, we just stopped here for, I'll throw some Navy terms out there, a BSF and a triple S stop. So if you were in the Navy, BSF is a brief stop for fuel, and a triple S is shit, shower, shave. So yeah, so those are the two reasons we stop. We're only going to be here like an hour. We'll get back on the road. So I'm starting to wonder if there's money to be made in like bad mouth and Prime. And the reason I ask that is this. So, I did a video just the other day on the my first 26 weeks here at Prime. And I threw out all the numbers exactly the way they were presented to me. And I had somebody comment, and this guy's been commenting on other people's pages like he's just desperate for attention maybe, but he also wants to like bash anybody who is at Prime and how much money we make, or really how much money we don't make. But here's the interesting thing. He threw out some numbers of his own, and then when I started crunching them, because like my law background is like, now let's look into this. So I started crunching his numbers, and I hit him up back with a comment, and I said, because he claims he drives owner-operator for Amazon Prime or Amazon. And he was like, oh, I made this much money in 125 weeks. So I started crunching the numbers, because then he said what his mileage rate was, which, by the way, was not very high. It was like 280 something a mile. And I'm like, I make more than that on a lot of loads. But his cost per mile is significantly higher than mine. But whatever. But anyway, I crunched the numbers, and I'm like, so dude, you averaged over 3,800 miles a week for 125 weeks to get to the numbers he was throwing out. And I said something about it. He didn't respond at all. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then, like, and here's the other thing. I basically said, look, I don't know what it is with truckers, and maybe it's just endemic in our society where it's not enough for somebody to maybe not do as well as you do, but you have to, people feel like they got to remind people that they don't do as well as they do. And it's like you can't just win. These people can't just win. They got to make sure you lose. It can't be like a win-win. But here's the other thing. All these people make assumptions about what it is that I need in my life, right? Like, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on seeded rye bread. Now, that's not something everybody likes. And I'm not sure why, because I think it's pretty awesome. But I don't badmouth people who don't like that or who haven't, they don't eat those kind of sandwiches. Why? Because everybody, maybe somebody's allergic to rye, to caraway seeds. Maybe they're allergic to peanut butter. There could be a million reasons why they don't eat peanut butter and jelly on seeded rye. And, I like what I do at Prime. And as long as my wife is not, complaining about the money I bring in, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing, I'm just going to keep doing it. And, so if you're that person who is just only can derive happiness and joy from putting other people down, you really, and I'm not joking about this, you should seek some professional help. Maybe just talk to your primary care physician. You may be suffering from clinical depression, but you may also need therapy. Like, you got some underlying issues that make you angry about what other people are doing, even when you think you're doing better than they are. But here's another little secret that I've learned over my 59 years. As long as somebody's happy doing what they're doing, you should leave them alone. Like, here's an example. I wouldn't want to be a pig farmer, but I really like pork chops. So I'm grateful that people are pig farmers. And if they don't make as much money as I do, that's okay, because they're providing me with a service. And I said this in a video the other day when I talked about being a lawyer. I've made good money, really good money. But that doesn't change the fact that it was just money. It wasn't a commentary on how awesome a person I was, whether I put my pants on one leg at a time or I just jumped into them like, Superman or something. It's not a commentary on somebody's worth, how much money they make. And in this country, it's a terrible, terrible habit that people have to judge people's worth based on how much money they make. Because, there could be somebody that's making $16 an hour, but they are a volunteer firefighter and they've taken several CPR classes. And the person that's making $200,000 a year starts choking on their $36 steak at a restaurant, and the person who was making $16 an hour that took somebody in there on a special date is the one that saves them by doing the Heimlich maneuver or doing CPR. So my question in that scenario would be, who's the person of most worth? Well, the answer is neither, but the person who saved the other person's life certainly deserves a lot of credit for being prepared and just being a good human being. And it's kind of like I know some people don't like to hear about religious stuff, but it's kind of like the parable of the story of the Good Samaritan, right? And when Christ says, who was the neighbor to the man, right? And that's the question. Are you a neighbor to a man? Not do you make more or make less, but are you just a good person, right? You try to help people out. So I'm happy to respond to comments. I mean, I can pick people's arguments apart. I mean, I used to do that for a living. I used to be like, oh yeah, keep talking, give me more data. You know, I used to go into court and people would come in there and they'd be like, I'd say, hey, do you want to settle this case? They'd be like, no, because blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not really the law. That's not going to work here. I'm not your lawyer, but I'm telling you it's not going to work here. Well, we'll find out. I'm going to talk to the judge. Okay. Guess what? I'd never lost those cases. And it was not even close. The judge would listen to him. Then she'd turn and say, counsel. And I'd be like, I just spit out some stuff. And she'd be like, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with plaintiff here. And I'd get a judgment. I'm not saying that made me more important than them, but when they thought they, had the upper hand and they thought they were better than I was, that I was just this, I'd been called lots of names over the years, it just didn't work out. So I'm happy to be trolled. People want to, it's like somebody made a comment about getting a vaccination was, me taking in poison. I'm like, dude, I was in the Navy, man. Why don't you look up 111 trichloroethylene and then we'll talk about poisons. I used to clean my hands with that stuff. That's a carcinogen up the yin yang. I mean, don't tell me about poison. I'm not scared. I'm not worried. I'm not calling my doctor. Okay? Like they said in Officer and a Gentleman, sell it to the Air Force. So anyway, good talking with everybody. Have a good Sunday. And we'll just go from there. And we'll catch up to you. Hopefully, we're gonna have enough time when we get out, like near Portland, that I can do some travel log and stuff for geology or history or whatever. So anyway, talk to you soon. Bye.